Welcome to the Rachele and Cassandra Show. Before we begin, our disclaimer. Rachele and Cassandra both live and work in Michigan. They are only licensed in their respective fields.
Hi, everybody. I never know how to start this, and I usually have Cassandra here to do this bit, but I'm Rachele Evers, and every week I like to come to you with something of value. My job, or what I like to do with this podcast, is to share information that I think will help home buyers, home sellers, other professionals in the industry, literally anyone who might need the information. And in light of that, we do not have Cassandra here this week. So I've decided to bring in a very good friend of mine who is also the operating principal of the brokerage that holds my real estate license, Dominick Comer. Hi, Dominick.
Hey, Rach. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited about this.
I am too. So I want to tell you the reason I am having you here is I don't want to say in part, the whole reason that my license is at Keller Williams is because of the firsthand growth. And I'm like blushing because I'm so impressed by you. The firsthand growth that I got to witness, the part of your story that I got to see. And I've recently found out about some of the pieces that happened before I ever even met you. And holy shit, you have a great story. So thank you so much for being willing to share it.
Thank you. It's sometimes, and now I'm blushing. Sometimes it's uncomfortable when people ask me to talk about my story because it's so natural to me. It's just what my life looks like, and here I am.
Yeah.
So I like to come back with a question to you and say, to you, what's a short version of what you see my story to be?
Well, the first version of what I thought your story was, based on the parts that I got to witness, where you were a young punk with an attitude and a lot of hustle and grind, but not a lot of follow through.
Yeah.
Right? We sat in broker class together, and I have a different chip on my shoulder, right? I was like, I'm like a box chucker, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it right. And look at this punk kid over here kind of fucking around.
Oh, I didn't take it seriously at all.
And I took it too seriously, right? It was like the most important thing in the world. So we were very different, but we were.
Yeah.
And fast forward to the other big piece that hit me is COVID changed the world a lot at the beginning and hard. And you were like a shining beacon when I was very lost.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like a lot of people, right? I migrated to you for leadership and chose you as my mentor. Unbeknownst to you, I mean, you know it now, but you didn't at the time.
Yeah.
And what a dramatic shift from sitting across from you in that broker class, you know? And it was freaking cool.
That is cool. And I love that this is something that we talk about often.
Yeah.
I mean, when I got into this business, it was interesting because I got into it because I needed to make some money and I wanted to work for myself.
Yeah.
I came in and I did what I was told to do, and I did it consistently. And, you know, for so long, even, 3 years, I was in the business and I was just making my way through. Yeah. And that was when we met, pretty much broker class time.
Yeah. And let me just add, if you don't know this, when the fast forward part of the story came up, Dominick owns Keller Williams Living, and he didn't. When he sat across from that class, we were both just a couple of agents trying to figure it out.
That's right.
Huge shift.
Yeah. And I didn't take it that seriously. The only reason I was in that broker class is because Erin McKenzie told me that I had to be there.
Yes.
She's,
we all do what Erin McKenzie says.
Yeah. And I just thought that it was a thing that I had to go sit through, and I didn't take it seriously. Mm-hmm. And I never ended up becoming a broker.
Yeah.
It wasn't. One thing about me is that, and I know that you know this, is I don't do anything that I don't want to do.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes to a detriment. Mm-hmm. That's why I have 47,000 notifications that are unopened on my phone. It's because I'm not going to open them if it's not moving my ball forward.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, my family comes first. My business comes after that. So, yeah, I got through the broker class. I was, a punk-ass kid who was doing real estate. And I believe it was probably that same year was when I hired my first coach who helped shift my mindset to let me know that there was more out there for what I was doing.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Let's do it.
Where'd you find your coach? How did you pick?
I was at one of the national conventions, family reunion,
Okay.
in 2016 or 17. And I booked that trip on a credit card because I didn't have the money for it. And while I was down there, I was looking at all of these people who had multi-million-dollar businesses. And if they had one thing to say about how they got there, it was because they hired a coach.
Yeah.
So I left one of the classes that I was in and went to the booth where the MAPS coaching stand was, and I went and hired a coach. So not only could I not afford the $3,000 trip to get there, this coach was going to cost me $1,000 a month, which was more than my mortgage.
Yeah. That's a large number.
So I committed. I wasn't going to fail, right? I signed up for that coach, and my business started launching at that moment.
Yeah.
Because I did what I was supposed to.
Yeah. So did you pick your coach? Did they just throw your name in a hat and assign you to somebody, or?
No, they didn't. It's not like throwing your name in a hat. So basically they found out about my business as it was then.
What was that?
At that point, I probably was selling I know I was selling $5.2 million in the last 12 months before that. And about 18 or 19 transactions is what it was.
Okay.
And man, I tell you what, I was looking at people who were on stage who were selling 50 million and 100 million. And I can do the math of 3% of that to figure out, what the heck I'm doing here.
What am I? Yeah. And isn't it funny how I'm guessing if your trajectory is anything like mine, while you were doing those $5-6 million worth of business every year, you're like, holy shit, I've never made this much money in my entire life. And you were also working from, 6 or 7 a.m. until 11 or 12 at night. Like you're fucking working constantly. Or I was.
I wasn't.
No, okay.
No.
Overkill is my middle name.
Well, you started your real estate career at different companies.
Yes, for sure.
And there's nothing wrong with either of those companies. They just didn't teach how to run it like a business.
No, they didn't. Yes, you're right.
Right?
Correct.
So I never worked from 7 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. Even from the beginning of my real estate career, my phone was plugged in my bedroom at night away from where me and my family were
like
after 6 o'clock.
You're like describing my dream life right now. Okay.
Yeah.
And you were doing that from day one. I love it.
I was doing that from day one because I came to a company and that's what they preached was models and systems and treat it like a business.
Yeah.
And, lead generate for 2 hours a day. So I just took it serious and literally, and that's what I did. Yeah. And I couldn't understand why people were running around 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I didn't even work on weekends as a real estate agent.
It's crazy. That's crazy talk.
Yeah.
But I love it. It's so inspiring. Like it is possible. You're living proof. What did you do before real estate?
So, man, how far before? Work-wise?
Work-wise.
Okay.
How'd you make a living?
Right out of high school, I was a dad in high school. Right out of high school, I got a job at Ford Motor Company.
Which many would view that as a pretty sweet gig.
That was as far as I could see, right? Growing up, my family was a Ford family. Mm-hmm. And there's obviously, that there's 30, I was going to say real estate plants, Ford plants in Metro Detroit. Yeah. So this is where we're at. So that was my whole entire life. All I was told was get through high school, graduate, and I'll get you a job at Ford.
Yep. Lots of families have that as that's the framework. That's what you do.
There was nothing wrong with that. I got in there at 18 or 19 years old. I was making, good money. Mm-hmm. I was able to support myself and my family. And the difference is that I looked around and I didn't want to be a robot. And some of these guys were afraid to retire that I was working with. They had 30 and 40 years in there, and they were afraid to retire because they were going to go home and do nothing and die.
Yeah.
So that didn't sound very fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to, I bought my first house while I worked at Ford. My first real estate agent planted the seed with me, and she said, Dominick, you need to come sell real estate with me. Like, you're a lot of fun, and we could build a team, and, and you'd be great at this. And I said, Christy, and she's still an agent today.
Who is it?
Christy Ambrose.
Okay.
She's in commerce.
Okay.
And I said, oh, man, you're crazy. Why would I go all commission? Yeah. I got a great job at Ford.
Terrifying.
Yeah. But it stuck with me. And I was a punk-ass kid. And I had all these tattoos, and real estate looked a lot different back then.
Yes.
I didn't think I would be taken seriously. And I wasn't going to dress up in a suit and tie.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't a thing for 10 years.
I did not know this. You sat up, so you had this earworm basically in your head for 10 years.
10 years.
Wow.
Yep. While I started actually unknowingly working towards entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. While I worked at Ford Motor Company, at some point, somebody, some rumor starts coming around the plant, and it says they're going to offer buyouts. Oh. And I was like, well, what does a buyout look like? And they kept saying $100,000. And I'm like, well, I only have 6 years or 7 years.
Yeah.
Wonder if I'm going to be qualifying for $100,000 to leave.
So you're hypothetically entertaining this non-existent theoretical buyout already.
Absolutely. Okay. From the time of a rumor. And I started saying, if they offer $100,000, I'm out of here. And I was going to get 6 months of insurance and a plan for life and see you later.
Yeah.
And it came into fruition.
Right. Now I have to wonder, did you manifest that?
I have to wonder that too.
Yeah.
Right? I do. I say I manifested everything that's happened in my life.
Of course.
But that's where I got out of the plant, and I started planning my entrepreneurship journey at that point. What am I going to do with $100,000, mm-hmm. right? Which was $67,000 after taxes.
Of course.
Still the biggest check that I ever took home at that point in my life. And I went and bought a truck and a trailer and some lawn equipment.
Did not know this part of the story either. What?
And then I printed off some flyers and passed them around in neighborhoods around my house and started a landscaping company.
Holy crap. I had no idea. Mm-hmm. How was that?
Well, that was actually a dream of mine when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I did it as a kid. I pushed a mower around the trailer park and cut lawns.
Yes.
And that was my job every single week. If I needed to make a couple $100, I could go mow 20 lawns out of 600 in the trailer park and make, $10 a lawn.
So here's another piece that is new to me. I did not know that you came from a trailer park. Not that that's mm-hmm. anything, but it's very different from home ownership advocacy, mm-hmm. right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's just how that's where I was raised, right?
Sure.
So my dad lived outside of a trailer park, and my mom lived inside the trailer park across the street.
Okay. That's kind of nice.
Me and my brothers all lived with my mom in a single-wide trailer while my dad lived in a house across the street.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A big house?
It was way bigger than the trailer.
Yeah, like more appropriate for that many people.
Yeah, it was a 1,500 square foot,
yeah,
tri-level quad. But yeah, not by choice. We had to stay across the street in the trailer park. And it wasn't a bad thing. I mean, nothing in my life actually was a bad thing looking back.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this a little bit earlier, and I do this for my kids. I really want my kids to have all the joy in life.
Yeah.
Right? I want them to be smiling and laughing and giggling and just loving life.
Yes.
Opposite of when I was a kid. I wasn't the giggly fun. I didn't have fun. I don't remember joy, but I have joy now.
Yeah.
So
you're making it.
I'm making it. But Oh, so living in the trailer park,
Yes.
I would see these big trucks pull up with these zero-turn mowers, and they were the ones cutting all the common area. And I thought these guys had to be rich,
Yes.
right?
Of course.
Big job. And they were there every week. And I was the kid, like I would be skateboarding by and I would be checking out their zero-turn mowers because I thought it would be the coolest thing to ride on. And yeah, I mean, what are those things? $7,000-$10,000. I could never have one of those.
Yeah. It's a lot of money.
Right. So that was the vision that brought me to take that buyout and want to buy a zero-turn lawnmower in a trailer and get business.
So at this point, you have the earworm. You're still not doing real estate because you've got this older itch to scratch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Because I needed to learn. Oh, God. Everything worked out for a reason because I needed to learn how to lead generate for business.
Yep.
Right. Which was knocking on doors, which I never did as a real estate agent. But I learned how to lead generate for business. Yep. I went out and did the business. Then I had to go and learn how accounting worked. Oof. Right.
Yeah.
And then I had to learn how collecting money was like when people wouldn't pay me.
Yeah. Or if they're not happy with your services or the myriad of things that can go sideways.
So many things. So I was doing all of those jobs and realized that my favorite one was the sales. It was lead generating for business.
Self-awareness.
Yeah.
To figure that out. Really, how many years did you do this?
I did that until like 2009. So from 2007 to 2009, only a couple years.
Okay. Long enough.
And actually that was during the Great Recession.
Yeah.
So towards the end there, I decided to sell off my lawn equipment and go get a sales job because I wanted to get more into sales. So I went to a car dealership, used cars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so this wasn't that long ago. I mean,
no, it's not.
Now we're talking 2010, 11.
Yeah.
I'm selling cars 10 years ago.
I was selling Verizon Wireless and then Comcast in that time frame. Go.
Still thinking about real estate.
Yes.
Now I have to dress up a little bit more for work and, my khakis and a dress shirt.
Was it at least a Ford dealership?
No, it was Chrysler.
Oh, God. Okay.
Yeah. And I sucked at it.
Oh.
I was so bad at selling cars because I actually knew my way around a car.
Yeah.
And I could not convince somebody to spend their last dollars on a piece of junk car and drive off the lot and hold me responsible for it. So I talked a lot of people out of the cars that they were looking at. So
Honest.
It wasn't making me money.
Integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah. They can get in your
Before I
way.
knew I even had it.
Yes. I love it.
Right? So I did that for a couple of years. My life fell apart because I didn't make any money.
Yeah.
I lost my house. I lost my truck. I lost everything. And I mean, honestly, a couple minutes before I lost my house is when I met my wife.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
It was, and I think the second time that she ever came over to my house, my electricity was shut off and my gas was shut off.
Wow.
For being delinquent.
How did you keep her?
Oh, God, I don't know. I tried to shoo her away so many times, like, you need to get away from this mess.
Yeah. Save yourself.
Yep. And she was just a cute young girl that was going through nursing school and oblivious to this world that I lived in. I had a 9-year-old son at the time. She was 20. God, she was like 22.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they were closer in age.
Yeah.
It seemed like.
The deck is sounding very stacked against this working out.
Oh, yeah. And as she started to know more about my world that I was in, as I was getting ready to be homeless again for the second time in my life.
Wow.
And, luckily my son lived full time with his mom, so he wasn't homeless with me.
Yeah.
But Lauren, my now wife, she went and rented a house. She lived at her parents' house at the time.
Yeah.
She went and rented a house for us to live in.
Wow.
And we'd only known each other for a couple of months.
Oh, she knew you were it. Had to be. Can't imagine any other reason to take those moves.
And I was a dirtbag. Like, I mean, I wasn't mean to her or anything like that. I didn't have anything together.
Yeah.
I was so lost. I had a horrible sales job because I wasn't good at it. Aspirations, always had that real estate aspiration, but nobody ever believed that would work out for me.
Right. Including you, it sounds like.
Including me. I had too many cards stacked against me, I felt like.
Yeah.
It was my own negative self-talk.
Of course. It's always.
And Lauren's parents are the biggest blessing in the world. They believed in me. When I mentioned that I wanted to get into real estate, they both were all on board. You would be great at that. Let me help you start a business. I'll give you $5,000 to get your business going.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
Yeah.
Cool.
And there I was. I went through my real estate classes. I got licensed, and we lived in Commerce at the time. I decided I wanted to start building my business in Livingston County because that's where Lauren and I wanted to live one day. And that's where it all started.
Wow. So, okay, you said something that made me have questions. Second time of being homeless. What was the first time?
That was actually when I worked at Ford Motor Company.
What?
At 19 years old. I started at the Wixom Assembly Plant. It's no longer there. And 6 months into my career as a line worker at Ford, I got laid off because they were closing that plant. And they said that I have, 4 or 5 options. I don't remember how many. They said, we need to, you can take a job out of state. And they said, you can go to Twin Cities, Minnesota, Norfolk, Virginia, Kansas City, Missouri, Louisville, Kentucky, or Buffalo, New York. And I said, which one's closest? I had never traveled anywhere in my life. And they said, Kentucky's closest. And I said, okay, I guess I'll go there. When do I have to be there? And they said, this was Friday, mind you. They said, you have to start there on Monday.
Like 2 days.
In 2 days. I didn't have any money saved up. I mean, I was still at the very base hourly wage that they offered, $13 at the time. And
Wow.
and I was a 19-year-old kid who had a son who was 2 or 3 at that time. And I went home to my mom after work, because that's where I lived, was with my mom, and said, I have to go to Louisville, Kentucky, and I have to be there in a couple of days. Like, I have to go down there and find out where I'm going to sleep and where I'm going to work. And I don't have any money. My paycheck that I got that day went for my truck payment.
Yeah.
Right? That was what it paid for.
Right. You're at like break-even lifestyle.
That was exactly it. And then she goes, I don't have any money. Go talk to your dad. My dad worked at Ford also. He was higher up. And I went to him and I said, and I hope he listens to this. I said, Dad, I have to go to Kentucky. And he goes, I know, I already heard. I go, and I don't have any money. He goes, I said, can I borrow some money, like $100 or something? I mean, even if I have to buy a tent and a sleeping bag.
Yeah.
He said, Dominick, do you remember that you still owe me $100 for that mattress that I bought you when you were 15 years old?
Wow.
And I turned around and I left. And I went back to my mom's house to pack my stuff, and she ended up giving me $100. And that's what I had to go down there with. And I wasn't going to get a paycheck for 2 weeks.
I'm really resisting the urge to not like take a shot at your dad right now. I won't, but what the hell?
Yeah. Well, we're good now. But yeah, no, 19 years old, I drove down there. I didn't know a soul who was going to be down there.
Your dad didn't even say like, hey, I got you a spot you can stay.
Oh, no.
Nothing.
No.
So you went to Kentucky.
I went to Kentucky,
Woof.
drove straight to the plant, sat in the parking lot, and just thought about where am I going to sleep.
Yeah, like
And
here in my truck.
It was in my truck, right? It was in my truck, or it was still September down there, and it wasn't cold yet. And I did buy a tent and a sleeping bag, and I slept at a local campground that would allow me to pay when I got my first check. I was showering and brushing my teeth at Ford. I mean, cleaning myself in the sink.
I had no idea.
I lived like that for 3 months.
Wow.
Until I could afford to share a place with somebody that I met at work.
And how long were you there?
2.5 years.
Wow.
And I drove back every weekend after I got a paycheck to see Weston, my son, every weekend for 2.5 years.
This story is exhausting.
Yeah. It made me who I am today.
Of course.
Right?
Of course. And continue.
All right. So time went on down there, and the UAW told me that I would only be down there for 1 year. So that's why I agreed to it.
Yeah.
1 year, I can do 1 year.
Sure.
And then I'll be back in Michigan, and they'll place me in a plant in Michigan. 1 year went by.
So the goal the whole time is you're coming home.
Coming home.
This is temporary.
Yes.
Okay.
As 1 year started getting close, I went to my union down in Kentucky, and I said, all right, when am I going back? I've been thinking it was a timeline, and I was going to be leaving soon. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I mean, I have a family back home, and I'm driving back and forth every single weekend. I was told I would only be here for a year. When do I get to go home? And he said, oh, you're not going home. He said, you're going to have to forget about your family and make a new family here.
What?
And I said a few choice words and almost got fired that day and didn't care.
Yeah.
Ended up getting talked out of that. And I was still there for another 1.5 years after that. I was miserable in my life.
Yeah.
And this is a great part of the story, actually. I was very unhealthy. I was drinking and smoking anything I could.
Yeah.
And I was swearing up and down the line every single day. And there was a guy who I really, really, he changed my life. I was saying the words, God damn it, every other word.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, Dominick, will you just not say that? Maybe say GD instead. And I respected him, and I started saying that. And it wasn't long before he said, hey, Dominick, why don't you come, talk to me on break? And he was also from Michigan, but he moved his whole family down.
Okay. Oh, he was part of the same activity that brought you there.
Yeah. And we met while we were there. And on break, he would say, if you want to go back to Michigan, maybe you should pray about it and have some patience rather than just complaining about it all the time. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know God. I didn't have anything in my life that was good. And I said, I kind of blew it off. I was nice to him, but I blew it off. And I said, well, what's that going to do?
Right.
I mean, wishful thinking.
Right. Yes. I can relate to that.
And he
mindset.
didn't give up on me. He kept coming back to me and saying, Dominick, just pray about it and be patient. And I stopped complaining about not being home. And actually, I was working 4 days a week there, 4 10s.
Okay.
So Monday, I would drive back. Before I would drive back, I would go sometimes to the glass, what do they call it? The glass house. That's Ford headquarters.
Okay.
And I would walk in the door and say, who do I need to talk to about getting back to Michigan?
And where is this glass headquarters?
Dearborn.
Okay, so you're here in Michigan. You're going in there.
Yep. Just trying to bark up a tree
Yeah.
and find out who I need to talk to about getting me back to Michigan.
This is while you're working in Kentucky.
Yes.
I'm taking so many great notes.
And before long, I started praying about it and patiently waiting for the call to take me back to Michigan.
So I just want to slow way down right here because I'm sensing a shift in your perception of the environment, even though the circumstances hadn't changed.
100%.
Yeah. So you're no longer bitching. You're just patiently waiting for the thing you know is coming.
I had to change, right? That was one of the big changes in my life. And even from the time that we've met, I've had to change again, right?
Of course. Nonstop hip hop, baby.
That's right. So, yes, I started making my first mindset shift.
Yeah.
And focusing on, not focusing on what I couldn't do anything about.
Yeah.
And basically grasping for the higher power to take care of me.
Yeah.
And So this guy started sending me, his name's Jim Eggleston. He gave me my first Bible actually as a gift when I left. But backing up, he would give me CDs to listen to on my drive back and forth from Kentucky to Michigan.
CDs?
Sermons.
Yeah. Okay. So from like his local church or something that other people could go get?
They were something that other people could go get. I believe that he bought them online or something.
Okay.
And I would plug these CDs in, and for 6 hours there and 6 hours back, I would listen to these sermons.
Yes.
And these sermons, it wasn't about religion to me. It was about having faith.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about, having faith in some mythical character sitting on a cloud.
Yeah.
It was about having faith in everything that you do.
Yes.
And that was my first real journey at believing in the unseen and having hope and faith. And I would listen to those. I listened to them. Now I would look back, and it was probably for 8 months to the year.
Yeah.
That I listened to those every single weekend, every single trip back. He continued to give me more and more, if I'd go through them. And that's when I started to have, faith in God.
Yeah.
And that's when my life started to get good.
Yeah.
Because one day, it was actually July, we were getting ready for July shutdown, which happened every year at Ford, 2 weeks off for retooling and things like that. And right before we were getting ready to leave for July shutdown, I got called down to the HR department. And when I got down there, they gave me an envelope, and they said, you can't tell anybody else about this, because there were 68 people who went from Michigan down to that plant.
Yeah.
And I made friends with them at that point. I was down there for a couple of years. And they said, you just can't tell anybody about this. Here are your instructions. On July 17th, you're going to go to Flat Rock, Michigan, and there will be somebody waiting for you. His name's Tim Hewlett. And that's when you're going to start work at Auto Alliance in Flat Rock. So
One person. You.
Yes.
Do you know why? Did you do anything special? Did you become a rock star employee?
No.
Did you kiss someone's ass just the right amount? Really?
That was one of the first
Miraculous. It's a fucking miracle story right there. Yeah.
I was the only one. And there was plenty of people that wanted to go back.
I bet.
And I had friends that were, they're probably still mad at me to this day.
Yeah.
That I had to disappear from because I couldn't tell them.
And you couldn't go back to work and say, I won't be here tomorrow. Nothing. You just stopped going to work.
No, I actually had to come back after 2 weeks shutdown and work 1 week.
Why?
Because that was their deal.
And you couldn't say anything while you were there.
I couldn't say anything while I was there.
Wow.
So I had to disappear.
Is that I have to wonder if that was a test. Interesting. Just a little test, but it's a test.
It was something.
Okay. Oh, okay.
But yeah, I ended up coming back, and that was when it was real weird, but Tim Hewlett was waiting for me. Out of this plant of 6,000 people there, this guy was waiting for me at the gate that they told me to show up at on the day they told me to show up.
Are you like a secret agent? What the hell was the job they gave you when you got back?
They gave me a floater job, and I was actually working in the gravy of, it was the repair garage, which was where all the 30 and 40-year guys work, because I was a floater.
What does that mean? If I didn't know, because I don't.
It means I had to learn a lot of the jobs so that I could work in repair garage.
You could get plugged in if someone else couldn't do it.
And I could get plugged in if somebody didn't show up. Yeah. Partially, that was because part of the deal of me coming back was that I was going to lose my seniority. So I had to start over again day one.
Right. Which, if you don't know, seniority is a big deal in automotive.
Oh, yeah.
That's like you live and die by that.
And towards my retirement. So yes, you have to work your way up in seniority and time in order to get the good jobs. But I ended up getting the good jobs at Auto Alliance because I had zero seniority and they needed me to float.
Oh, so you were cheaper.
I was cheaper.
You were cheaper.
Oh, yeah. And I was running circles around these guys because they were the old 30, 40-year guys that were like, oh, don't work so hard. I mean, they're going to give us less, they're going to give us less hours if you're running around here pumping these cars out.
Oh, it's that, yeah.
right?
That's a whole separate episode. But yeah.
Oh. But yeah, that was my journey at Ford, and that was when I got to buy my first house, was back here in Michigan.
So hold up. You got moved back to Michigan, which is what you wanted. And it's, I don't want to say a piece of cake job, but you're rocking it.
Mm-hmm.
You got chosen. You don't know why. You got what you wanted. So why are you not still doing that?
That was just because I was looking around and I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life.
Right.
In fact, I think the straw that broke the camel's back was when I was in, this was a big thing. I knew so many jobs in that plant because I worked my ass off and I wanted to learn them and I wanted to show up and be a rock star.
Yeah.
To where when Bill Ford had a car being built for his daughter when she turned 16 or however old, but it was her convertible Mustang.
Yeah.
And they had, when Bill Ford orders a car, there's 30 people following that car through every step of the way.
I bet.
Well, it got to the convertible line and break happened. So everybody went off and, went to lunch. And these people who were following the car all went off and went to lunch. And there was some assholes on the line that turned the line back on and sent this convertible car through the car wash, a 30-minute soaker wash with the top down.
Why?
To destroy it.
Really?
Because if Bill Ford orders a car and it's supposed to be done at 4:30 in the morning, there's somebody who's going to be there at 4:30 to pick it up and drive it out of there.
Yeah.
And somebody was just an asshole.
Sabotaging it.
And they sabotaged it.
Oh my gosh, I don't understand that.
That's the mentality.
Yeah. Wow. It's just it's hard to see other people holding on to that kind of mentality.
Yeah. So
yeah.
All of the big bosses came running to me because they knew that I could work fast and I could get this thing rebuilt before it needed to happen, before 4:30 in the morning. It was midnight.
Wow.
And they needed me to completely gut the interior of the car, wiring harness and all, and rebuild it. And I had 4.5 hours to do it.
Did you assemble a team to do this, Dominick?
They assembled parts runners.
Okay.
And they would go get me the parts, and I was assembling
So
it.
you're calling the shots.
Yeah.
Go get, like a surgeon, scalpel.
Yeah. Yes. And I was able to get the car built, completely rebuilt, before 4:30. So they were, patting me on the back. A lot of these guys would have lost their job had that.
Heads would have rolled. So you saved some asses. And I'm guessing they picked you not only because you knew how to do it, because you can do something fast or you can do it well, but it's a unique skill set to do it fast and well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to cut corners and get the job done.
No, I wanted to show up like every day when I came to work. I wanted to do good work. I wanted to be noticed. I wanted to work my way up. I wanted opportunity.
Yeah.
And it never came, even after that.
Really?
Because right after that happened, these guys had amnesia and forgot about it.
Of course.
A week later, my grandma went into hospice and she was not going to make it through the night. And she said, I just want the family there at my side for my last night. And I called my boss and said, hey, this is my grandma's last wish. I scratched your back last week. Is it okay if I don't come in tonight? And he said, if you don't come in, you're going to get a week off discipline.
Wow.
And it was a week later. Yeah.
Now, is this, not that it matters because what a dick move, but is this a by the book? He has no choice or he had discretion and he was just like.
He was the one who could say that I could not be there.
Wow.
It was Tim Hewlett.
Wow.
Yeah.
The guy.
It was the guy.
Who met you.
Yeah. And at that point, I realized that it didn't matter how hard I worked or how early I showed up or how late I stayed, that I wasn't going to work my way up anywhere in that company. I was a grunt.
Yeah.
And they were going to use me until I couldn't be used anymore.
Yes.
And then, I would just be another zombie that works on the line that doesn't do anything else. And I didn't want to be that.
And then you retire and what do you do now?
Right.
There's that.
That's right.
How wonderful that you picked up on that.
Oh, yeah. And everybody thought that I was absolutely crazy to take the buyout. I didn't have any skills. I didn't have any college behind me. I had nothing to fall back on except for a dream to do something else.
Yeah. So
So
Then what?
Well, then I was back home. I was a little less of a shitbag because at that point I, had found a little bit of faith in God. I had started dreaming a little bit again and exploring, what life could actually look like if I tried.
Yeah.
And, obviously that brings me all the way back to if I'm ever going to become wealthy, number one, I have to work for myself and I have to learn how to build a business. And that was it. And that was when I found Keller Williams. And I did it.
And you
Somehow.
just quit? You just said, hey, peace out, Girl Scouts. I'm going to go do this instead.
Yeah. Well, that was when I took the buyout.
Yeah. Buyout shows up, you go, and you're, wow. Wait, you took the buyout. Hold on. I have something confused. You took the buyout, you did the lawn care. Mm-hmm. You sold that.
Sold
went
cars.
Sold cars, then went to real estate. Mm-hmm. So now you're in real estate. And if we go to the part where you start Keller Williams, how long were you a punk agent? And then how did you manifest owning the freaking brokerage? With how many agents?
192 agents.
It's insane.
Yeah. I got my license in 2013.
Mm-hmm. So did I.
Busted my ass. Went in, made phone calls for 2 hours a day, 100 to 300 phone calls.
Wow.
Hitting tons of brick walls along the way, not making any money for 6 months, to selling, 17 houses the second 6 months of my first year, and continuing to lead generate for 2 hours a day. Got up to $5.5 million for the next couple of years, which was pretty level.
Yeah.
Until I hired a coach and hired some leverage to ultimately build what you knew as my home team.
Yep. Yes.
And we grew that to $50 million. That was in year 4 of my real estate career. That was with the 4 of us, me, Tracy, Bill, and Aaron.
Yeah.
And
I remember watching you guys. I remember meeting with you guys about team building. If there was one in particular that you did at Cleary, and I was like, I am going to go and figure out what the hell they're doing. And what I figured out is you guys were just constantly asking questions to figure it out.
Oh God, we were traveling all over the country to ask questions to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. Success leaves clues. We wanted to model what anybody else was doing to have a $50 million team. And then what's next? And what was next was actually Tracy didn't want a $50 million business. Bill didn't really care about a $50 million business at the time. He was just getting started.
Yep.
Aaron wanted to build a business in a different direction. And I said, this business has changed my life for generations to come. How do I help more people do what I did? Because I wasn't supposed to make it.
Yep.
And that turned into, with my coach, brainstorming and saying, I need to own the brokerage. I need to help all these people.
Do you still have the same coach?
No.
Is your coach still a coach?
No.
Damn it. I want to talk to your coach.
He retired and wrote a book. He asked me a couple years ago if he could use my story in his book, because that was when I decided I was going to buy the brokerage.
Yeah.
I went to Rick Smith and said, Rick, in 5 years, this is my 5-year plan. I want to buy the brokerage. And he said, Dominick, in 5 years, I'll be 70 years old and that'll be perfect timing.
Yeah.
It was 5 months later after I told him that goal that he called me and told me that he was sick.
Oh. So I'm chasing my own tail in my head here, but what an opportunity, if that's appropriate to say. As sad as it is, your transparency about your goals created something for Rick too.
It absolutely did. And Rick's family.
Yeah.
Rick's family and I are still in business together, not with Keller Williams, but with the title company.
Nice.
Man, I don't know. I manifested it. That's exactly how it worked out, because when I met with Rick, when he called me and told me that he was sick and that he's going to live, but he needs to get his ducks in a row just in case something happens. And he slid across the table to me an appraisal for the business. And I looked at the numbers on there, and there were 7 of them.
Wow. Yeah.
And
I can only imagine what went through your mind right there.
what went through my mind and almost came out of my mouth was, I can't afford that right now.
Be careful. Speak very carefully in those moments,
And
right?
he stopped me as soon as I started to say,
Yeah.
I can't. And he said, don't tell me you can't afford it. He said, don't tell me you can't afford it. Just go home, pray about it, and talk to your wife and come back and tell me how we're going to do this deal.
Love it. Think around the corners, man.
Yeah.
When you have on your mindset, like figure it out hat, stuff shows up that you just would not see otherwise.
It does. Every time.
Yeah.
In everything that we do.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother.
Like, that's faith, I think. It is a whole nother.
Whether it's good or bad,
Yeah.
what you focus on expands.
Of 100%. This is, yeah. You had your CDs. I have my audio Tony Robbins on repeat, and it's all the same message, right?
It is.
So I've taken a little bit of notes, and you tell me if I'm missing anything. So the things that are sticking out to me are that have helped with your success, right? Your willingness and openness about your own mindset. Hire a coach, find a mentor, find helpers. I'm seeing some helpers. You had your guy on the line. You had your coach that you hired. Lauren's parents stepped up. This is going to move me to tears because like nobody's an island, right?
Nobody. Even
It's
if you
okay.
want to be.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think you're talking specifically to me right now. Absolutely. So success is not something you do alone. I also hear a lot of persistence, which persistence and compounding go hand in hand. I am in love with the idea of compounding. This is something that I've learned about late in life, and it's just so sexy to me. Like time on task over time. I think I learned that from you. You just keep doing the thing, and eventually the rocket launches.
That's right.
It doesn't launch the first time you do a thing.
Or maybe even the 10,000th.
No, absolutely. And even, I don't know. I don't want to say even if it never launches, you're gaining a skill, but even if it may turn out to be that the rocket you're trying to launch isn't the one that gets you where you wanted to be, right?
Absolutely.
And then I had this longer bit that I took a note on because when you were talking about what you were doing on the line and hating what you were doing, I wrote down this sentence about living out of alignment with your purpose, because at that time, maybe you weren't even thinking about your purpose, but you said you were substance abusing, living an unhealthy lifestyle, doing something you hated. And from an outside perspective, the job you were doing is like the American dream. It's literally the conversation you inherited when you got here.
That's right.
Well, I'm personally really happy that you figured out that doesn't work for you because not to turn this into a love fest or anything, but whether you realize it or not, you're a fucking beacon. And it reminds me, I'm going to cry, just how powerful I really am. And everybody has this. This is not a Rachel special, Dominick special. This is like you're special. You may not realize it yet. Maybe this story helps you see how fucking powerful you really are. Yeah?
That's right. You can do anything. You truly, in everything that happens in your life is an afterthought.
Yeah.
And if you've ever slowed that down, everything is an afterthought. You have to think about it first, and then you do it, or it becomes.
Yes.
And I guess Earl Nightingale said this probably in the 30s. He said, the biggest problem with this world is that people just don't think.
Yeah. Yeah. So think about it.
Think. Right?
Yeah. I so want to keep going and like hours for hours. This could go on. I can't thank you enough for doing this with me.
Anytime.
Even if nobody ever listens.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll see you guys next week with some other possible real estate related nonsense. Bye.
The info given is current as of this recording, but remember, the market changes and real estate is hyper local.